an emergency in our own way as lay people?
Thank you.
In the perspective of community and society.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. So, if you imagine any situation where you have very limited time to make a difference in terms of saving a life or preventing irreversible damage, you would call that an emergency. For instance, if you get a car accident, you may break a limb. There may be you may feel a lot of pain. You may be at risk of losing a limb. What may be likely to threaten your life in the immediate time may be excessive bleeding. It may not exactly be the pain. The pain may be causing anxiety, but if you're bleeding and the bleeding doesn't stop within a certain period of time, you're likely to reach a point where you either lose life or you get damaged some organs that is irreversible. So in that case, you'd call it an emergency. Or in an alternative situation, someone may be sick. They may have a chronic condition, like they have an allergy they've always known from childhood. But if they get exposed to something that causes that allergy to flare in that minute,
yes,
they'll get difficulty in breathing. If you don't intervene within a limited time, there's a very high likelihood that you lose that time. So there's a time factor, and then also the risk of having an irreversible damage or losing life.
Okay. What are the ways of responding to an emergency situation? I'll start with you, Dr. Ahisimi.
Thank you so much. So responding to an emergency is a very broad, the entire continuum, because like I said, time counts. People think there's an emergency, like the common saying goes, if symptoms persist, visit the nearest health facility.
We see one of you.
But how someone gets to a hospital and when they get to a hospital determines what the hospital can do. Frankly, there are many times when people have arrived in hospital and it's too late to do something.
Yes.
Yet potentially, if they had gotten attention much earlier, it may not have been the most advanced, but if it had been provided a little earlier, it would have increased the chances of those who have sophisticated care provide it and provide immediately. For instance, if you fall down from a height and someone realizes that you're bleeding from somewhere, they may want to drive you to the most advanced hospital they know. But potentially, if they had done something in that short while, what we commonly call first aid, they would have increased the chances of you making it when you arrive in hospital. So the response starts immediately by recognizing that there's a problem. If you're seated in a bus and you get a cardiac arrest, you get a heart attack as we call it, and your neighbor doesn't notice that you've actually gotten a heart attack and thinks that you're sleeping, there are minimal chances that you'll get that attention as fast as you deserve.
Okay.
So it starts from recognition, right where the situation happens. There's a transport piece, ensuring that someone safely gets to where they can access care. And then the final piece is the hospital-based care, where you receive the definitive attention that is required.
Dr. Uwanyahe,
yes.
What do you agree with him, or you have some other thing to add in as far as those other measures or types of how we can handle or respond to an emergency? Because one would say every emergency will call to its own response, to a different kind of response. But generally, how would you, what would be your submission?
Yes, as Dr. Bonaventure has brought it out, when an emergency condition has occurred, the first thing is the people who are near you, what type of response are they giving? Because if these people don't help you at that point in time, you cannot survive. Because if you, for instance, we are here and I got a cardiac arrest, if you who is next to me, you don't place me rightly, even if you called an ambulance to come, by the time you put me in that car, we shall reach hospital and they pronounce me dead. But if you knew what to do and you said, okay, let me offer the first aid, then by the time the professional team reaches, it will find when someone is still breathing. And there are simple steps which community members should know, and which even at office level, even when you're on the street, even when you're in the bus, that first help is very important before you get
So the first step,
professional
the first
help.
response is first aid.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the first response. After that, there should be also an ease of you calling professional help. There should be emergency lines which are very well known to all of us. When you call this line, there should be an emergency response vehicle which reaches you. It could be an ambulance, it could be a motorbike with paramedics reaching you to support this person, this lay person who gave you first aid. Then they will come and offer professional help, and after that you are put in an ambulance, and ambulance actually means that you are moving while being cared for, not just being transported. And that is key in increasing your ability to survive. If you are just transported, then the risks of death increase.
Okay. Thank you so much. How would you now describe our situation? Good enough, you're the commissioner in charge of emergency services and things like that. How would you describe our situation in as far as that response the picture you have given us is concerned?
Yes, our situation.
Out of 100, how much do you think we can score?
No, our situation, I wouldn't like to score it, but if in scoring, I would say we are at about 25% in terms of response.
I was thinking of 30, by the way.
Okay, because you can see whenever, I'll give you examples, whenever an accident occurs, the people around there, nobody comes to an accident scene to give help. They are not coming to give help. Most of the Ugandans, when they come to the accident scene, they are coming to find what has remained in the car for someone to pick. So in that area, we are almost at less than 5%. Because that is, as I said, that is the first response which can assure you to survive. Then when you shift there, we are supposed to have adequate trained first medical responders. We have trained a few people, about 1,000.
A few people, like you say.
Yes, about 1,000 in the country who can be able to offer that first response. And
But
that,
you know we are about over 40 million people.
yes, that is why I'm.
What is that kind of ratio you're talking about?
Yes, that is why I'm bringing that in terms of that first response at the scene, we are still not doing well. Now, when you look, the first people to arrive at the scene of the emergency, commonly, especially on the roads, are the police officers. And still in that category, we have very few people we have trained. And it is something which we are building on. The government realized in 2016 that this is a big gap, and this was put in the health sector development plan, that this is the gap which we must address if we are to improve the way in which emergencies are being handled in the country.
Okay.
And we are in that process of building, but as you know, you can't do everything at a go. When it comes to transportation, we have the vehicles, but equipping is still a gap there.
Do we
Now,
have the vehicles?
the ambulances in the country, we have 173 government functional ambulances. The country, we need 400 public ambulances. Then we have about 240 in the private sector. Now the challenge there is,
That is from Kisoro to Busia, from Gulu, from Aru actually, down to Masaka.
yes,
We have 240 private.
those private, but 63% of the private are in Kampala.
So, Doctor, you said we score 25%. I was thinking of 30. You actually brought me down to 25.
Now
I want to break down whatever you have told us.
Yes.
When you look at the ratio of the ambulances compared to us, the whole population, I don't think we can even score 1%.
No, we do.
And when you come, because wherever an accident occurs, it is either a police pickup. You said yourself that in the ambulance, the victim must be in the transit while receiving medication.
Yes.
What happens? Our victims are thrown under the seats of the police officers on the pickups. I'm now talking about if it is a road accident.
Yes.
2, you talked of there's so many ambulances I see around towns, not only in Kampala. Ambulances bought by politicians, and they normally have their faces at the boot and everywhere. These ones come when the victim actually is someone is a victim of something that really makes news, and this politician's face will be seen and things like that. Now, that means we are doing very badly when it comes to an ambulance, and you mentioned it as one of the pivotal issues when it comes to response.
Yes.
Then you talked of the professionals that come to collect somebody from the scene. We see police officers, and you also confirmed that you trained a few. Do we really still make even 10%?
We do. In terms of ambulances, 39% of the existing ambulances are the ones which constitute the government ambulances. And our ratio for an ambulance is 1 to 100,000 population. 1 ambulance to 1,000, to 100,000 population. Now, that is fairly adequate when you make the right considerations. But some of these ambulances, because they are not widely available, especially those in the private sector, then you find that people can't access them. Only
because the ones owned by the private people are very expensive.
Yes, that is the challenge. Only 25% of our population, if they call an ambulance, actually receive it. That is why we have, as Ministry of Health, we have prioritized the issue of ambulances as one of our key areas which we must address.
Doctor, I'll get back to you later. Dr. Bonaventure, what do you think explains, because I think I cannot ask that again to you. Doctor and I have agreed that actually there is a problem. He resists, but I don't think we still score even beyond 10%, because, Doctor, you'll agree with me that even the people that run, the first people that get to the scene of an emergency, they're not equipped with the awareness of what they have to do. It is a few of them. Others are recording videos, others are taking photographs, others are throwing the information on social media. It is a few who struggle to stop running other vehicles in case of anything to ensure that somebody accesses medication.
That's true.
Actually, it is a few Ugandans that think of an ambulance. Doctor, what do you think explains this situation?
Thank you. So that's still a huge challenge of access. Even the ambulances that are available per se, if today and now, God forbid something happened, I don't know that you know which number you can call to access an ambulance.
Yes.
And it in many ways explains the plight of many Ugandans. On the other hand, paradoxically, if you talk to many of the private ambulance operators, they're struggling to find value for money for investing in ambulances because they hardly get accessed. And when people reach out to them, it is many times not to transport emergencies. It is to move people who are actually healthy and have access, not healthy per se, but not in an immediate life-threatening critical condition, but because they are privileged to have the access to the ambulances, they want to transfer from one institution to the other or things like that. So typically when you look at what most ambulances are used for example in Kampala, the very limited proportion actually is for emergencies. It is, that said, there's an opportunity. We have a lot of resources that we could leverage. with the resources available to improve access to transportation, safe transportation for emergencies. It may not be very realistic to try and achieve the ambulance ratios that we see, for example, in the developed world. Because with that comes a huge back end of infrastructure. You need to have GPS locations of all ambulances so that you know if someone has called from Kasangati A, which is the ambulance to reach. Is it the IHK ambulance, which will have to snake through traffic and arrive there 45 minutes later? Is there an ambulance nearby? So there has to be an infrastructure to support that coordination. Having ambulances per se, if you haven't worked on that back end, may not solve that.
It may not also, in its right, solve the problem.
We've seen in some places like Kenya, they've sort of like developed like an Uber for ambulances. Private sector has come in, sort of like bringing innovative ways to improve access to the available ambulances. Because if ambulances are not rightly accessed and used regularly, there's a behavior change impact. So that's how you end up having some people using ambulances to transport.
We are so much concentrating on ambulances.
Yeah.
But he talked about, and I agree with him 100%, about the communities.
Yeah.
The first people at the scene and their response. They take photographs with their phones, they are calling each other, please muliwa mujemulabe, and things like that. Actually,
Absolutely.
they're just almost enjoying what is going on. Others just like spectators, others coming to steal, like he said. You find a victim without anything, yet he had a wallet and a phone and everything. So when it comes to awareness, one would look at you, the civil society,
Absolutely.
as not at work.
So thank you so much. So civil society is all of us. And I think it's a collective responsibility for all of us to improve the awareness aspect. So fortunately for most emergencies, it's possible to do risk profiling. Like you can anticipate what kinds of accidents are likely to happen in a home, what kind of accidents are likely to happen on a road, what kind of accidents are likely to happen in a school. For instance, if you go to many of these minibuses, matatus, you find these tiny first aid kits.
A red one.
Red one, with one pair of gloves, some little cotton wool.
That is if it's there. And if it happens to be there,
Yeah.
that is if it has anything in it.
If if that omnibus got an accident,
Yes.
that single pair of gloves cannot be of help, sort of like help in sort of like providing first aid for 12 people or 6 people, let's say. So if we are able to, and unfortunately, St. John's Ambulance and Red Cross have done a great job in sort of like spreading out first aid training. But if we're able to do sufficient risk profiling and ensure that the people who are in certain places are equipped with the skills to respond to the particular emergencies that are likely to happen. If you work in a gym, you should know how to do CPR or to respond to people who get like a heart attack, because it's likely to happen in a gym where people are exercising.
Yes.
If you work in a school, if you work in an industry, you should be able to handle small cuts, injuries, because those are likely to happen in that situation.
Definitely.
If you are in a home, you should know, and you're taking care of kids, you should know what to do if a child is convulsing or has a high fever for starters. So I think one way that civil society can catalyze the response to emergency care is promoting awareness, particularly empowering people to invest tactfully in the response for the risks that are most likely in the areas where they are located.
Now I see problems, gaps of communication, and in as far as logistics are concerned. Then when it comes to manpower, because it's the police that is all over. But these are people who are trained to keep law and order. You get? They're here handling people that have health problems. So we're taking a very short break. On return, Doctor, you're going to tell us where you are, because this is now directly under you in as far as Uganda is concerned. What plans do you have? Before even the plans, what are you doing to see that we have, where are you in the situation that we have such gaps, grave as they are, because our people don't know, actually, we all don't know what to do. That's why we behave that way in the case of an accident or an emergency. The people that really have to do it. We have seen ambulances. There's one that I see on a certain road whenever there is traffic jam. Hospital staff are seated there and probably they are very tired. So to go home early, this man switches on the siren and they're just running off the road.
I'll clarify on that.
Yes. So, can they really do the same when there is an emergency? For you watching, thank you so much. We're trying to assess the situation of our response to emergency situations in our beautiful country, Uganda. How do we respond? Have you ever helped somebody in a problem? Or you are among those people that pick their phones and only record whatever is going on wherever they meet it? So keep watching. When we return, you will also have a chance to call us and tell these people something or ask them something. Let's take the break. Please keep around.
Good.
Inspirational moment with Pastor Jackson Senyonga of Christian Life Church, Kampala.
God is going to restore our lives. He will not let his children be oppressed. You not work on a project and end midway. You will not begin building and your construction stalls. You will not stall.
Inspirational moment with Pastor Jackson Senyonga of Christian Life Church, Kampala. UBC TV is the only public broadcaster of choice.
We inform, educate, guide, and entertain.
We bring you news as it is, while it is happening in real time.
We take you far away places from border to border.
We keep you up to date wherever you are.
In the languages of Kiswahili, Uganda,
And English.
UBC TV, inspiring Uganda.
Back from that short break, you are on Pick a Point. I have two doctors here with me, one from the civil society and another one, a whole commissioner from the Ministry of Health in charge for emergency medical services. And we are assessing our capacity as a country to respond to emergencies. Doctor, we are back.
Good.
How do you head a section in a whole Ministry of Health in charge of emergencies? And you have all these gaps. Because if I were you, I would walk out of office and say, if you don't give me enough ambulances, I will not answer questions for results.
Now,
You have an ambulance. If they give you ambulances, again, they have an issue of traffic jam. Every community has a health center too or something like that. Why don't you boost them to be responsible for issues of first aid, at least to have a patient for a night before they are transferred or referred to another bigger health facility?
good.
Why are Ugandans not informed enough about emergencies? Because you would have a whole unit to do that. Anyway, you start with that.
Thank you, Jordan. One of the positive things which
What is
has
standing in your way?
what has happened in these years is this department was established in 2017. So it is as old as 2 years. So, but that is a positive because it was not there. But the government realized there is a gap, it established it. So that is why we are able to know that there are gaps here and there. Now, what are we doing about these gaps which are existing? We have...
Doctor, before what you are doing, what I want is what kind of obstacles are you coming to realize, the stumbling blocks that are standing in your way to tackle these problems that stop you from achieving
Of course, one of them,
So you
especially
told
for the
you
community.
told us about the age of the department. You're
Yes,
too young.
that is there, but that's a
Can
positive.
you rate that at a 50%?
That is a positive in the sense that if government realizes that there is need for this department, then that shows you that government is thinking positively about improving emergencies, emergency response. As far as the community is concerned, at first, the focus has been more about infectious diseases because they are killing people so often. But as we keep improving, as you have seen with immunization, with malaria control and so on, now these diseases which occur as emergencies like road traffic injuries and others become now the main contributors to death. And now that is what we have got to focus on. Most of our people, of course, we have not done our part of sensitizing them to know that when an emergency occurs, it is your responsibility to help. So it is one of the areas we are in the talks with our colleagues in the civil society, in the private sector, to see that they prioritize this when they are discussing on the media or they are in the communities, so that they sensitize people to know that this is their responsibility to respond to emergencies positively. The other part of non-response
will be as effective as the gap, as kind of the demand is.
The other limiting factor.
Doctor, a little bit with information, because information is so key.
Yes.
But when you try to engage the civil society and tell them, please, wherever you go, talk about it, do you think that will be as effective as the gap glares everywhere?
Now, that is one area. I will bring that there are three major areas which we have got to intervene. One is that spot in the community where the emergencies occur. There are gaps in there in terms of knowledge, in terms of fast response, and so on. The second is on transportation. In terms of ambulances, you have already talked about their usage. There is a gap there.
A friend of mine, Kageke Victor, has sent me a message that, do you know of ambulances that carry passengers instead of patients? And the other day we saw one on the social media that was carrying bricks. I think the driver was constructing a house somewhere. And some other day still I saw another one carrying bags of maize.
Now we know all those gaps and we are fixing them. The third place is hospital or health facility response. How do the health workers respond when there is an emergency? So there are these three areas which we must focus on. Now the first part, what we are doing, apart from civil society doing the sensitization, is also legally to place it that when people respond to help during emergencies, these people should not be victimized. If someone does it for a goodwill, like if you are driving and you find maybe there's an accident and you are knowledgeable, you want to stop and help, you should not go and maybe after leaving you have delivered the patient to hospital and then they say, no, report to police and make a statement before you proceed. No. If you did it in goodwill, and that is what we call Good Samaritan law or bystander protection law, where you can help. If your help is for the good, you should not be victimized for that. So we want to provide that legally so that people can feel free to help when there is an emergency. Because you have seen situations where there is an emergency on the road, but people are driving, going. Some are fearing because when they touch, then they will say, aren't you the cause?
Actually, police will say we are holding Dr. Bonaventure here because he is helping us in investigation. He will be the first suspect. But again, there is something you're missing, you're leaving out, Doctor. Every point in this country, Uganda, has that first level health facility, what we call health center too. Yes. I think you would be the first person to cry out loud for the biggest boost for facilitation of these centers, because they would help you a lot to handle the traffic jam, the transport strategies. By the time somebody, people thought of an ambulance, somebody has received some
Yes,
prior treatment.
the way we are handling there is using the community health workers. We have started training these people as the first responders in emergencies, plus those at the health centers. All these levels of training will occur, but the biggest change will occur if we institute first aid training back into our schools, right from primary, secondary, tertiary, plus these community health workers. If we wait for that group, we have provided it for that training in our strategic planning, and we would like also Ministry of Education to review the curriculum so that there is provision for training first aid in primary schools.
Thank you so
and
much,
secondary.
Dr. Nambohe. Now, let me go to Dr. Bonaventure here. Civil society, are you people just here to tell us what is not going right? What is stopping you from at least coming up with the measure, and that this is what we can do, and actually show us some pilot projects of something that you can help the communities with?
Thank you so much. I'll pick it up from...
Because the doctor, we have agreed with him that there are problems, there are gaps, and we have pointed at them. But we have you here as well.
Thank you so much. I'll start with where Dr. Wajay stopped. There has been a history of first responder training. We may have called it first aid training. We must credit St. John's Ambulance and Red Cross for a lot of work that has been done in that area. The population of Uganda has more than doubled. The capacity of and funding for most of these private providers has almost stagnated, because generally global investment in healthcare has not been expanding at the same rate as the need for healthcare. This is not a local challenge for Uganda, it's a global challenge. The last World Health Assembly of the World Health Organization identified 8 priority areas and passed a resolution to prioritize emergency care across the globe. And one of the key areas that was identified, one, is safety. Safety for patients, safety for responders, safety for providers. That if I am, for example, going to respond as the first person who comes to see someone on the roadside, and I'm not so sure if they're alive or dead, I will not fear and say, let me wait for police. Maybe there may be quarter a chance that I may be the only person who gives them an opportunity to live. Maybe they choked on something, and they're struggling to breathe. And maybe I may be the only person who helps them relieve that choking. The legal framework protects lay people like me and you to be able to make a difference in that regard. It's a multi-sectoral intervention. It's not only the health sector. If you go to a swimming pool, if you go to the lake, you cannot have enough health workers to be present in situations of emergency, because emergencies happen anywhere, anytime. They're not scheduled. You will not say that they will happen near where there's a health facility. We know the coverage, and the health sector in Uganda is the setup of the referral system is optimized for resources. So we've seen in other places where they do very well that if you go to a restaurant and choke, at least 1 of 6 people present will know what to do. And this is not acquired in a health facility. It is acquired through basic training. So I think it calls for other players, for example, private people and government also involved in education, to integrate basic skills. And I think that's where an area where civil society is engaging. I'm glad that you've provided us this platform. There's been a large awareness campaign called #TimeIsLife, and I've seen several people really try to raise awareness on emergency care. And I think that's one bold step, that it has been recognized at the highest level at the World Health Organization. It has been ratified by all member states of the World Health Assembly, and that forms a basis for advocacy, for resources to be availed, and also other sectors beyond the health sector to be able to prioritize it as a priority for integration in training and in other areas.
So at least you're not only complaining.
Yes. Now, there was a question which you brought
Yes,
up on
Doctor, we have
ambulance.
3 minutes, yes.
The ambulances, even when you see the health workers in, they could be going to respond to an emergency.
I love the word.
And so it is not always that when they are seated in the ambulance, they are using it for transport.
Oh.
So we need to differentiate that. And when we differentiate that, we shall, because whenever there is an ambulance, you give it a right of way, because that health worker could be going to save someone, either at the hospital or even on the way. So that is why an ambulance, when it has a health worker, should be given
some
a right
clarity
of
on
way.
that, because whoever is watching has seen something like that on the road, and there must be clarity. How many medical professionals can handle a patient in an ambulance? Because the ones, thank you so much. So the ones that we normally see on the road, between 5 to 6:30 p.m. have more than 8 nurses seated in there. You get? And they are
Now, this is what we are going to address. We have come up with the standards and norms for ambulances, and when we start implementing this, then everyone will be knowing those standards, that an ambulance will be having 2 health workers moving in it and a driver, and then it will be very easy to sort out this problem.
Where do ambulances park? Because I think every highway would be, there would be a distribution of ambulances along highways. Why do we have them stationed at hospitals?
This is what we have planned now. The
Because
original
if there is no accident along Masaka Road, somebody may get, a child may fall from a tree or something like that. A school child may get a problem at school. And if there is an ambulance, Masaka Road, people know, call 0770.
We have prioritized the highways for emergency response, and in the coming years you are going to see what you are submitting, that we have ambulances stranded on some allocated places on the highways waiting for response, and we shall have at least an ambulance in each of the health sub-districts also ready for response. These are all things which we are working on now. You may not be able to see now because they are still very few. But by 2022, you will be able to realize that we have covered this country, and people are realizing that the response is as planned.
Like Dr. Bonaventure said, it is the response can be effective if it is a sectorial collaboration.
Yes.
I think police is doing a lot of your work, and people have blamed them, insulted them, and all that, but they're doing a lot of what you would do. So I'm not saying they should stop, but there are people that I don't think you're engaging all the sectors that can give a hand. The politicians have bought these ambulances, but I don't think many of them really know what really an ambulance should do. How are you engaging all these people that really can give a hand, can have a contribution, to see that really you get exactly what is expected of the service they put on the table?
We are working together with the police, the Ministry of Works and Transport. We are working with Uganda Red Cross, the St. John's Ambulance, the Academia, the Uganda People's Defense Forces. We are working together. We have come up with the emergency medical services policy. We have come up with a strategic plan, and all this calls for a collaborative effort. Now, when this is, we are now at the level of taking this
in
to
the plan, or doctor, the executions are already.
the execution is started, but at a lower level until.
Because I was going to say we have not yet seen anything.
No, there is something which we are doing. There is something we are doing. We have an organized response. Now we can be able to respond in an organized way. Both civil society and government, we can come together and respond to a major medical incidents. But we are waiting for the cabinet to pronounce itself on the policy, and we have prepared all the documentation. Soon our minister will present this in cabinet, and I know it's going to be approved. After that, we shall have better allocation of resources, and we shall then move. The steps are there. I know that right now people expect us to start running, but you know, we have got to move step by step, and
Doctor, it's the emergencies that are not waiting for you. Dr. Bonaventure, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, sure. I know there's enough time, but we talked a lot about awareness. There's an opportunity for awareness that is coming up. Government, private providers, police, and other key stakeholders that are involved in emergency response are coming together on the 7th, which is Thursday next week at Kolo Airstrip.
Yes.
To simulate how an ideal response should happen if there's a mass casualty situation, like how we've seen bus accidents happen on the roadside.
Yes.
That's another opportunity for the public to sort of like pick some best practices in terms of how they can play a role in responding in such situations.
Okay. And as far as awareness is concerned, there is an opportunity of 1 minute for you here, Dr. Bonaventure. Tell us something. What do you think we need to know as Ugandans in the villages in as far as response to these problems is concerned?
The pattern of emergencies is predictable. So if you run a situation or an entity that attends to many people, it would be very prudent to figure out what is the best way you can respond. Don't wait for an emergency. If you run a swimming pool, think about a lifesaver. If you run a restaurant, be sure that the chef knows how to save someone who is choking. And as an individual, have a response plan. Don't only wait on government. If there's only one car in the village, there's one person who has a car in the village, at least have their number, know how to reach them if you need help at all.
And treat him well.
And treat him well, you know, because he may be your only savior if you get an emergency at 2 a.m. So, whereas government does their part, each individual should have the emergency response plan. Don't wait until the emergency happens.
Okay. Doctor, back to you as we wind up. Before you give us your message, we had forgotten something that I hear coming out in his point, something to do with awareness in as far as prevention is concerned. How do we prevent these? There are emergencies that are preventable. I, for one, believe that most of our road accidents are due to reckless driving, reckless use of roads. If you realize we have less accidents on madam roads, but the moment the road is tarmacked, people start dying. So how much are you doing in collaboration with these other sectors or organs of government or agencies to see that prevention is also enhanced amongst us?
Yes, we have 2 minutes. We have the Uganda Road Safety Council. That is a council which joins us together. There are 5 pillars in road safety. The first one is through proper management. That's why that Road Safety Council was set up.
Okay.
Then the way we construct our roads, the way the pedestrians and the drivers, the way we license the drivers, are they all licensed? Are they trained?
Just buy the license.
Yes, that is key. Then you know that the Uganda Traffic and Road Safety Act is being reviewed to put in strict measures so that all drivers are actually trained and these drivers annually are checked. We also have on the medical side deterioration in sight. After 40 years, people's sight keeps deteriorating. So there should be assessment of this driver to see are they really able to see while they are driving, so that we minimize on that.
Thank you so much, Dr. John Baptist Wanyahe Nambaohe. Wind up with this one in just a second about prevention. I brought the accident issue as an example, but how about these other emergencies? Pregnant mothers that die on the way, do they really go for antenatal and they're told of what to do? I think you need to enter a number of offices. So how do you pass on this information in as far as prevention is concerned in emergencies? Let us wind up with that one.
Yes, all emergencies, we have packages in which we have got to prevent them. We have already talked about those road traffic injuries. It is more to do with the processes which are outside the health sector, but we have to work together. This one is to do with the obstetric emergencies. It is preparedness. The mother attending antenatal, and when it occurs, you should be prepared in terms of knowing what to do, so that there is no delay at home, and you know where to go at the health center, and we should make sure that the ambulance vehicles are available. Even if we did everything well, emergencies will always occur. So we must be prepared to respond and have what we call secondary prevention.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I think when you say we must be prepared, there's so much emphasis on yourself and your team. Thank you so much for accepting. Yes, we thank you so much for watching. That brings us to the end of tonight's engagement. Our discussion was so pertinent to do with emergencies, those problems that abruptly come up in our lives. How do we respond? It starts with you, your village. Are you the man who takes photographs when someone is drowning in a trench? How can you help? Things like that. That is what we were discussing. They have a role to play in their different capacities, but so do you. I had two doctors, Dr. Bonaventure Ahisiwe, the country director, Seed Global Health. He's the man on the extreme right, and in the middle is Dr. John Baptist Wanyahe Nambohe. He's a Commissioner, Emergency Medical Services, Ministry of Health. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the news with Sharon, and good night. Happy November, happy weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It is bigger